cloud. There we go. Okay, it's recording now.
Perfect.
Cool. So yeah, so I'm just going to run the files that I've done just to show you the output things I'm getting, and then we can go through. I think we can build up to one of them and like pick a problem, I think, to solve, and we can work through it. So this script creates the matrix that we need with all of the ones and zeros. And what you put into it, you load in two things. So I've got to put in the command window what I have to load in. So here we go. So select your CSV coding files infant first. So let's say I'm doing, I don't know, number 17. I take the infant coding and I take the mum coding. I can select both of them and I press OK. And then it loads that up. And now select your LED sync file. So I've created this sync file because they're out of time. With two cells, so that's now in, and it's done. Oh, I haven't written it out, but basically it will create in here a matrix I've called it matrix, and it is 14 columns. So the first 7 are the infant, and the last 7 are the mum. Column 7 and 14 are the frame numbers. They don't start for a couple of hundred. And yeah, where there's a 1, that's where the mum was looking. Mum was looking at toy 1 here. Baby was looking at toy 1, etc., etc. So you've basically got that. It's like 17,000 rows, and that is what you need at the start. But then you can do absolutely anything you want. Like once you've got this, honestly, like you can just do everything, which is great. So I've got a bit of code here that also write matrix just writes it as a file. So I specify the file name, and I'm specifying what I want to make that file. You know, it's this variable matrix with this table. So that, I think you can see my whole desktop, right? Not just MATLAB, right? You can see you can see me looking at my Finder, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've probably got one from before, so it spits out, yeah, that 17_1 nat1c matrix CSV. So there it is. There's the file from yesterday, whenever it was that I last ran this with that code uncommented. So yeah, when I've commented code with this percentage sign, it ignores those lines, doesn't try and do anything. So you can comment stuff with command and / you uncomment with command and T. Removes.
So does that mean it just doesn't do anything, or is that code wrote the matrix into your CSV, or does it mean it hasn't done anything at all, or it's not done it in MATLAB, it's just done what you got?
It means completely ignore this line of code.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is why they're called comments, because people use them to, like here, I've put a comment that explains what this section does, right? Yeah, that's why they, but it just ignores it. It's just you can write whatever you want in there. But it's
kind of like, so you know what the code's saying.
Yeah, exactly. But it's also sort of like turning off something if you want to, isolate things, or you want to. So I've got different ways of loading in files, for example, like, you saw the window came up for me to select the files. So that's this bit of code here. But if I want to manually input, originally when I first built this, before I learned how to do that, this didn't exist. Whoops. This didn't exist. So that just didn't exist. And instead that was running, and I can manually input, the mum and infant code and the LED code. But I've commented that out because I don't want that anymore. And I'm using this stuff instead, which brings up those windows. So yes, we get our matrix, and then I created one. This one is probably my worst bit of code, but I just wanted to start looking at plots, although I don't really like the plot stuff. So basically this is still got a manual thing, but let's say we take number 17, 17.1, nat1c. What this does is it will add up. It just adds up in each column, all the ones. So you can, and then it plots it. I'll show you what it outputs. It's very slow. It's not a good bit of code. Yeah, so basically for number 17, you've got infant is blue and mum is red, and this shows the total number of seconds that the infant is looking at the toy in their interaction, and the mum's looking at the opposite. So this one, actually, the infant is looking at the partner a lot, which is odd. Like if I look at number 9, I think 19 and 26. Yeah, this is more what I've found with some other ones, is that infants generally don't look at the mum that much. So the blue is the infant, and they don't really look at the mum, whereas the mum.
This was the baby one that I recently
coded.
I think this is the baby video that I recently coded, because the amount of time that was inattentive.
That's cool. Oh right, yeah, it's interesting. It's just a nice visual representation. So because we can count all of these ones in a column, basically all it does is it counts. We're counting. So like it loads in the file, and then just to explain what it does here. So code one is, I've just called it like column 1. I've called it a variable code 1 infant. We'll go through and do some of this stuff. And I'm just sum just means add up. So add up in the variable file, which is the file I've just called it file, the one that I've loaded. Add up all this, you specify your row and then your column. So add up all rows, column 1, where it equals to 1. So that just adds up all of the ones. And then essentially I just divide that by 50 to give me my seconds, because it's frames per second. And then I've got my total, you've got your total seconds. And then there's the thing to display the graph, which I had to get off. I basically Googled all of that stuff. So yeah, there's that one. I don't love that one, to be honest, it's a bit slow. These are my favorite ones. I may as well just show you the multiple participant one. So I started to look, the big mystery was for me was how to work out lead and follow interactions.
That's what I was thinking about as well. Like, I didn't know whether it'd just be easier, like with what we have, to just look at, you know, how long it takes, and doing it like manually, to look at how long it's taking for the one person to move to something, and then that person then following that. Because I think that's where the most interesting data is coming from, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I thought the same. I thought I could just do it manually, and then I thought, no, I'm gonna write something to do it. So I've got like a follow one here. This one is for, hang on, let me just check. So I've got some for like single, let's do the single toy one first. So I've got like one toy. So let's look at one toy. So you can choose what toy number you want here. Or you could put partner as well. I've just done it for toys. But let's say we want toy number 1. I actually I've got like a time window that I want to look at for the follow. So it's looking at how many frames before do we want the mum to start the interaction. We can ignore the after's not relevant here, but let's say it's 5 seconds, so 250 frames is the window we'll allow. I started off by, so this one is for multiple participants, so I could put in, you just use the matrix files now for everything. So we'll use participant 17, 19, and 26. Those are the only ones I've got. Done, it's done. So actually I've done it, so it gives me, you can ignore most of the stuff, but it gives me these summaries. Summary for participant 17, number of baby leads, where the lead interaction, where the mum responded within 3 seconds, because that's the after. That after thing I think set to 150, which is 3 seconds. So blah blah blah. You get these things. Average time for the baby to follow the onset of a mum look to toy 1, 3.15. But basically, I then turned it all into, is it this one? Yeah, into this. So for participant 17, their average follow time, when they followed, their average follow time was 3.15 seconds for a look to toy 1. For 19, it was 2.8. for a look to toy 1, and 26 was 4.96.
There's an interest, because then you can look at, like, is there an interest of a toy that's more gripping, or is it, you know, you could look at averages across the baby or the toys. Like, there's quite a lot of,
there's loads of things that you could do, and then you've got the stranger data as well. You can compare with. This spits it out actually, and for each object. This is one I did yesterday, but this is just an Excel thing it spits out. So I've run it from. Actually, no, wait, this is a different thing. Sorry, no, this is it. Toy 1. There you go. So I just put in the headers, so participant ID and average time for the baby follow in there. So I did that. So you can select. So you could also look at, like, if you want to just put in number 4. I know it says toy number 4. We'll look at the partner. Looks to the partner. So when the mum looks to the partner, how quickly does the baby look back? They generally don't, I don't think, look back too much. So this is just going to look at the time. So those are the times for looking. Those are kind of CV. No, that's not, okay. And then the other one I've done is, this is the best one. The multiple toys, multiple participants. So you can just now say, okay, I want to look at all the toys. So toys 1 to 3. I've got the same time windows here, and let's just select all of the participants. So we've got 17, 19 matrix, and 26 matrix. And it basically works out. Where is it? all objects. What is that? Oh, it spits out two things actually, which I'll show you the output ones here. So it shows you for all objects. So for toys 1 to 3, this is the average follow time for the baby. And for each object separately, these are their follow times. You got the partner one separated out as well. So you can literally just put in like 100 mums now, and it just spits all this stuff out.
And I was thinking, like, you have so many different ways to analyze this. Now you can look at how this compares on average with, you know, all of it against mum and stranger. You can look at different toys. You can look at different follow. Like, there's so much.
So
you
much.
Can analyze.
There's
just
so
simply much. From that. Well, I mean, not simply.
Yeah. Because I was thinking about the attachment questionnaires that I'm getting them to do, so I can immediately just throw it into SPSS with the attachment scores, and it just adds another for like a between participants, was it? Yeah, so for each participant, they've got loads of just like variables, right? And we can do regression stuff. We can look at I just thought.
Yeah, because now you've got me thinking about, like, because I'm obviously looking at the puppet data, and it's like, what is that time difference of? Sometimes the mum looks at the puppet, or the stranger looks at the puppet, and then looks straight back again, and it's kind of what's that time follow and looking at that.
Yeah.
Because even how much you change the follow time, because you can either like look at it and say, like, actually, are some kids really slow at following, are some kids really quick at following, like, does a kid follow every, you know, you can look at it in all different ways, I guess, can't you?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's once you have that matrix file done, there's literally the possibility. I need to make some baby lead ones. I do have it, but it's a bit I need to do what I've done with the follow for it. But honestly, like, it might look complicated. There's a lot of text, but a lot of it's comments, because I like to say what every line does so I remember later on, which is just good practice. Some of it is just spitting out things for me to see and down in the command window or to save things. But yeah, it's I don't know if it looks complicated, but it's really not. It's actually not too bad. So
you've made MATLAB look it's a lot simpler. Also, it's really cool actually what MATLAB can do.
It's amazing. And having this command window here is great, because you can, while I build stuff, and before I like, you know, I do save things to variables, but then before I use something again, I basically just check. I just get it to throw out down here what it's doing, and you kind of check and build from there. So yeah, so I thought we could like try and build something, just work up and build up this knowledge. So literally, all this stuff is built on knowledge of like how to create and store like variables, like storing variables and then calling them back, matrices, which are basically just tables, for loops, while loops, and if statements. And that is honestly, that's pretty much what it all is.
So I have a question on what is a for loop, if loop, thingy loop.
Yeah, so should we, are you guys up for actually jumping in and doing some stuff? We can keep it basic, but you to start seeing how to are you able to open? You both got one screen?
I can.
Two.
You got two, Betsy.
I've got two.
Oh, nice. So you can have MATLAB open as well.
Right, I'm gonna.
You want to go on? Have you got an iPad or something, Crystal, to put Zoom on? Or
yeah, I'm gonna just run my laptop downstairs and then just go on my parents' computer. Like, it should be on, and I just put the MATLAB up.
Oh, nice.
So have both. Is that all right? I'll just run downstairs quickly.
Great. Nice. Yeah.
You've managed to do so much with this.
Yeah, I've been a bit too. I've just got really into it. I just like the problem solving. But I was so worried about, honestly, when we had that call with Ira and Emily and they showed us their scripts, I was like, there is no way I'm gonna be able to do that.
Yeah, their scripts are just so long.
Yeah, I think one way to make them more efficient, which I will do eventually, they split stuff out into other files, so they can just edit, and then you call in another file. So I think their overall one is shorter, but then they call in other scripts. Like in the actual hand coding script, when it shows errors, they're sometimes in other files.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like calling in those scripts, and it's just so you don't have like everything running in like 1,000 lines because you don't always need everything.
Have you started coding the actual videos yet?
Yeah, I started last week. I need to carry on because I just didn't.
Yeah. There was one thing I think we were like I said to Emily about like maybe adding in like when the baby looks to its mum, like add that in as a code, like then we could, because that could be a good way of a testing the attachment as well. You know, if the baby's constantly looking to mum.
Is that not there? That's just the number 4, no?
Well, that's when they're with the stranger. So when they're in the stranger situation, and like like if they're constantly looking to their mum over their shoulder.
Oh, is the mum visible to the baby?
Sorry?
Crystal, you're muted, by the way. Is the mum visible to the baby while they're with the stranger?
Yeah, yeah, the mum's sitting behind them. She's still in the same room, but she's like sitting behind, I think. So like, if we could add something in like where the like the baby's like looking to mum.
On our camera, on one of the cameras, you can see it all the time that the baby will constantly like.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That would be really interesting.
Some sort of reassurance, yeah, and equally, I was thinking as well, like how the mum behaves is also really interesting. Some mums like really smiley, some mums obviously look anxious, and I think I think it's actually more interest in how the mum's behaving and how the baby like actually the activity they're doing is really irrelevant, and it's actually like that reassurance that baby keeps grabbing from that mum is.
Yes. Yeah, super interesting. Yeah, I'd love to be. Yeah, I'd love to code some more. I just giving ourselves more work, aren't we? The coding is so boring.
I wonder if that's something we can add in ourselves, or something whether like Emily would prefer to like add it onto the scripts.
Yeah, you're right. It might be something we can just do. It might be something we can do. If it's not happening too frequently, we could almost just like manually put it down, write it down, and then put it into the Excel files, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
I think there's some kind of interest there, though. I think that I was thinking that, like, how much a baby, like, needs that, is getting that reassurance or keeps asking that mum.
If the baby is not, so the reason that like the smiling and the affect stuff needs some work on the script to do is because the baby can be looking at a toy
and be smiling.
Whereas if they're looking, if this isn't concurrent, like if they can look away and look at their mum and they're breaking one of the other codes, then it's easy. We can just add in, that's quite easy to do. We could add in, and like the number 7, for example, for look to mum elsewhere, you know, stuff like that we can change.
I was really thinking that with the smile things. I was thinking half the time, like, if I'm saying puppet, and then they smile, that doesn't mean they're not looking at the puppet anymore. It just means they're looking at the puppet and smiling.
Right.
I don't know how, when they said about the smile thing, I was like, you literally have to do that as a whole separate.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, you would have to do a separate thing, the smiling.
Yeah, otherwise you'd have to put in like loads of like smile and this, or smile and.
Exactly. Yeah, you'd have to put it as a separate. I wrote it in the general channel yesterday. The Leverhulme. I don't know if you're in the Leverhulme channel on Slack. But they were talking about the smiles in there, and I just put in a thing about doing that, about adapting maybe we need to adapt the code to add, because we could just code for smiling while we're doing the rest of the stranger ones. Anyway, so you both got MATLAB up.
Yeah.
Okay, you might not see exactly, you should have, I don't know what you've got up on there, but you should have actually current folder, editor, command window, and workspace. Let me know if you don't have any of them open.
Yeah.
All of that. Dean, also, when we're allowed to go out and have a drink, I'm going to buy you champagne for this.
I haven't done anything yet. I really want, I saw the benefit finally of like, I was really annoyed with them. Almost. I was like, oh shit, we've got to do this ourselves. I thought we'd be getting given these scripts, but actually it's been great to do it. So yeah, I'm sure you guys will be able to do it as well. And obviously like we can all help each other and do stuff together. But I don't want to like just give you these scripts, because actually I think it's super useful to know how to change them for your own thing you need to. But we can work through them together and make sure we're all like, building this stuff together. And also talking to each other, you get different ideas of what you might want to do and what you might want to look for as well.
When they showed me the stuff, I thought that would be really helpful, but I was just like, fuck.
Yeah. Well, I would never have thought of doing that matrix, so that was helpful, because you can't do anything really without that.
Yeah, Ira did keep saying that to me. He's like, you need to understand for loops and matrices and
right.
And I was like, okay.
Yeah,
no, you really need to understand this, Crystal.
Yeah. Okay, let's jump in. All right, so just to explain, so basically we have this editor, right, which is where we write permanent script, so that every time we press run, it's going to run what's in the editor. The command window does two things. It gives you your output for whatever you've run in the editor, but it also can act as like a temporary, almost like a calculator, right? So I can literally type like 2 + 2 in the command window and press enter, and it gives me an answer of 4, right? But it doesn't store, I think it does store things until I clear stuff. So I could write like we'll just call a variable. So a variable, do you guys know what a variable is? So like, yeah, in your calculator, you could press like that is it M+ or whatever the button was, where you could like store something in your calculator, and then you could press M or recall, whatever it's called, M recall, whatever, and you can call it back. So that's all a variable is, right? It just allows you to call things back later on. So you store things. A variable is just like a name for something. So you could store a number, you could store a piece of text, you could store a table, whatever you want to store, and then you can call that thing back. So let's say we want to say we're gonna create a variable called my variable, and we're gonna give it a value of 2. Okay, so we say my variable equals 2. And it's just confirming that my variable is now 2. And in your workspace on the right, you can, and feel free, by the way, to type these things as we go, because it's sometimes useful just to type stuff together. You can call it anything you want, and on the right, we can see that my variable is now stored as a value of 2. You can click on these things on the right, double click on them, and it opens up a variables window, which is really useful. For single things like numbers, it just puts them in the first cell of the table. But now if I want to just see what my variable was, I could just type here my variable and press enter, and it tells me my variable equals 2, and that's it. I can then change my variable, so I could say my variable equals 3, and it will change up here in my workspace, so my variable equals 3, and that's it. Yeah, we can clear this command window by typing CLC, and it clears this. Okay, let's go up into the editor then, so we can do some stuff up there. So really useful thing to put at the top is CLC, because it will always clear your command window, which is quite useful. You can put the semicolon on it. You don't need to put that. So yeah, some coding languages are really particular about semicolons. Matlab at the end of lines, otherwise they literally just won't work if you don't put them in the right place. Matlab, I don't believe, bugs out if you don't have it in the right place, but although sometimes if you put it in, it tells you to take it away. But where you do use them in Matlab is here. So if I put my variable and press run, I need to save. So you always need to save. You always need your file saved as something before you can run it. So I'm just going to put, I don't know, session 1. Okay. So yeah, when I run my variable, it's going to tell me down here in the command window, my variable equals 3. So that's what I would call calling a variable. So I'm calling the variable, my variable in the editor, and it's actually, because I haven't got a semicolon, it's also showing it to me in my command window at the bottom. If you put, are you guys doing this at the same time? Or
yeah.
So if you now press, put a semicolon at the end of my variable and press run.
It will do it like in the workspace, but it won't put it in the command window, right?
Yeah, it's actually not doing anything in the work. It is actually calling the variable. It's invisible because we can't see it. But yeah, actually, if we do that, what you just said, Crystal, is if we make one called like my second variable, and we'll say my second variable equals 3, and put a semicolon after it, and then you press run, you won't get anything in the command window because you've hidden it with the semicolon. But in your workspace, you've now created a new you've declared, call it like declaring a variable. We've declared a new variable called my second variable, and it's gone in there as 3. Oh wait, they're both 3, aren't they? Let's just change my variable. So you can actually, let's just say my variable equals 2, semicolon it, just to change it in the workspace. Yeah. So we've got 2 different ones. So now, yeah, just like a calculator, you could now do stuff, right? So we could say like, we'll make another variable called multiply variables, and we'll call that, these are a bit long, these names, but we'll have my variable times my second variable.
We definitely could have made short.
Definitely could have done short and not
Yeah.
short. Yeah. So I'm going to keep the semicolon off because it will give us the answer, just to give us the answer at the bottom. Yeah, and it will just multiply them together. So it literally is a calculator. So you get 6. You can do division. You get 2 divided by 3. You can, I mean, it works in the same way as, like, do you remember like BODMAS at school and stuff? So if you want to add something and then do like a division, I had to do this like for the frames, for example. I had to put things, variables together and divide by 50. You can use brackets in the same way you would in maths. Yeah, and your mult variable, what in your workspace, is changing every time you do something here. So the rule is in code, whatever the final thing is at the bottom for, like, with a variable is what's going to be stored like permanently or in there basically.
Yeah.
But every time you run this, my variable is going to start as 2 and my second variable is going to start as 3. Cool. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah.
Any questions? Well, that's all.
I'm trying to work out why mine's coming up with error messages.
Okay. What does it say? What's the error message?
It says unrecognized function or variable doesn't like my second variable. That's a typo.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the errors are great because it also tells you what line you can find your error on as well. They're not, the Matlab ones are quite descriptive. They've got some good error messages in there. But yeah, so it was a typo, right?
From previous
typo.
Everything I've realized, it's always a typo.
Yeah.
I thought it was like, we thought this thing was a 0. And for ages, like, we couldn't work out a bit of the code, and it wasn't. It was 2 brackets rather than a 0, and like that fucked up our whole code for like hours until we realized that.
A little bit. You can do that. I'm just going to type in the command window just to show you clear all. I know we maybe got taught to do that for the Psych Toolbox stuff with the videos. So yeah, command window is just for running temporary commands that aren't going permanent. You're not saving permanently in this session 1. I've called it session 1 script. So if I just press enter on clear all that does is it clears my workspace. So my variables no longer exist in there. So what's really useful to do, I find, is I put clear all right at the top of my scripts. And you can write like this. You can have clear all and CLC written like that. Yeah, she says, I think now this. So and that all that does means every time I run the script, it's just going to clear out any variables that existed last time I did this, just so I know it's running from scratch. And that's really good for if you changed your script. It's good for finding errors in anything you've done that's new, because if it's using previously stored variables, it might use those and might not realize you've actually created some error somewhere with creating those variables. So it's quite useful just to put that in clear all at the start. Whenever you see this red squiggly line, that normally means you spelled something wrong. You can actually hover over it in MATLAB, which is quite cool. And it will say using clear with the all option usually decreases code performance and is often unnecessary. So I think they've actually changed. I think I've read some of them changed it so you can actually just put clear. I think does this. I think does the same thing. So if I press play, it will add your things. Now on the bottom, if I try clear, yeah, clear does the same as clear all. So you can just put clear and see. So I think that's a newer thing they changed in one of the recent ones. Okay, I'm actually going to change. I hate these names, so I'm going to change. So often you do var instead of variable, just to make life a bit easier for typing. Okay, so yeah, you have to change everything. Okay. I'm going to get rid of the multiplying one. Actually, let's keep it. Let's keep. Oh no. My formal cancel. Who are you? Cancel. Who are you trying to? My phone just starts running around. I'm going to change this to times 50. I thought we could try some. Oh yeah, because it's multiply. Actually, let's put it back. I'm going to put it as back to just multiplying the 2 variables together. Okay. Cool. All right. So yeah, we've got, if you press run, we've got 3 variables here. We've got my var, my second var, and mult vars. Maybe we'll change my var to my first var, just to be a bit more descriptive, make it a bit clearer that it's my first and my second. And they're now in. Okay. very useful thing to learn is that you can also do a calculation for a variable on itself. So I could say my first var equals my first var plus 10. And what that will do is it will now replace, because it's the lowest point in the script, so it always runs going down. So because this is the last thing, it will, yeah, well, what do you think the number would be now for my first var at the end?
So it'll be 12.
Yeah, exactly. So it will take my first var, which is 2, and it will add 10, and that will now become my first var. So if I remove the semicolon, it will show at the bottom, and we get now my first var equals 12, or what goes on the right, or we keep the colon on, but then you could actually just type my first var. So if you just type a variable name without a semicolon, it will just display it for you in the bottom, which is super useful when you're writing your scripts, just to check things. I often put them in the command window, everything but without semicolon, so I can see what it's doing, and then if it's declaring the right numbers, and then hide them later or delete them if I don't need to do it later. Does that all make sense so far?
All good for me.
Yeah, it's good.
Cool. Right, let's get rid of that, and we'll get rid of that. So we've just got our 3 things defined at the top at the moment. All right, let's do a print. So I'm going to show you how to display some text that calls on a variable. Okay. So there's 2 ways to display text. Well, there's a few, but the 2 that I'm going to show you in Matlab are
Print bracket thingy.
Sorry?
Print bracket.
Yeah, there is a print one. I was going to do the display one first. There's one where you just put display. Yeah, the other one is a print, exactly. So I think display, I don't think you can put variables in this. So I just think we can write, I don't know, welcome to my script. You can semicolon it or not. Display is always going to display something in the command window. And so if you press play on that, it should just have welcome to my script at the bottom, unless you've got any of these other lines missing semicolons, in which case it will also do that.
Yeah.
Welcome to my script. Cool. And then what we're going to do is we're going to print again, and we're going to tell the world what our variables are. Okay. Actually, should we put something else in here as well? Let's put no, let's do that first. Okay, let's do that first. So yeah, it's a really weird print thing. So it's actually f print f. I don't know why it's called that. It's f print f. You'll see another. Oh, maybe because it takes floats. You'll see one that's got an s actually in it as well. S print f. Yeah, f print f. This is when you want to put numbers into what you're printing. So I'm just going to put so text we always put inside these single quotes. Okay. So we're going to write I'm going to say my first number, or whatever you want to call it, is, and we're going to close the bracket, and that's it, okay? So if you run that, it will just say my first number is. But what we want to put in now is my first, we want the variable number to come out, okay? My first variable, we want to show the number 2, but we don't want to hard code the number 2. So we're going to say, so it's my first variable is the thing we want to put in. Okay. But what happens if you run that? So if you run it like that, what happens?
It just says my number is my first.
Right. Yeah. So we've put the variable in just as a bit of text, like normal text at the moment. So what we actually need to do is we want to call this variable in here. So we're actually going to take my first variable out there, and we actually, after the text, we're going to put a comma and put in the variable that we want to put in the text. So we have a few things here. So just to give you some terminology, so a double, what they call a double, is I think it's a whole number, I think is a double. And a float equals a number with decimal places. So not a whole number. I think that's right. So anyway, so they have some ways of calling. So the number 2 is, we could call it as a float, but it's unnecessary. We can just call it as a double because it doesn't have any decimal points or anything. So we could say my first, and let me just double check that. I might be wrong, but I think define double code. what is a double? And maybe it can be fractions. Oh, here we go. Float versus double. Might be to do with data, like the way it stores the data or something. Oh, well, yeah, it's to do with the way they hold it, isn't it? Floats are generally more. Okay, anyway. Yeah, it's to do with data, the number of bits in the data. Okay, doesn't matter. I generally seem to be using floats for my, stuff that needs to be more accurate with decimals. But anyway, we can call it a double for now. So my first number is, so what we do is to call a variable that's after the thing, we put a percentage sign in the letter D, and it's saying, call my variable that's a double. So now, and we can put a full stop, so you can keep typing straight after the D. So let's say you put a full stop. So now when you run that, it should say, my first number is 2. Did you get that?
Yeah.
What do you think you might do if you want, oh, my phones. If you want to say my first number is 2 and my second number is 3. See if you can work it out. So I'm going to just put, and my second number is. See if you can work out what you might do to get both of those displaying. It might even give you an error. I'll see if you should get an error message if you do it wrong, and hopefully it's descriptive enough. So I'll try one with an error. Oh, it's not giving me an error. Yeah. Let me know if you've got it, or you kind of just got to guess kind of maybe what you might do to put in your second variable.
Mine's come up with an error.
Cool, great. What does it say? Errors are great.
It says indexing with parenthesis.
Parenthesis, that's the bracket.
Yeah, must appear as the last operation of a valid indexing expression.
So what did you write? What was your thing that you wrote?
I basically copied the first bit and changed it to my second number is percentage D, my second variable. I didn't remove the brackets. Okay.
You in the same line you put it?
Yeah.
You
Maybe
did
that's
it.
where I don't know.
Well, you did it like this, you mean? You did that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then what did you do at the end here? So it says comma, my first variable. How did you put the second?
I just put my second variable.
Like this?
Yeah, so I actually kept it the same. So it's like my first number is my percentage D, comma, my first var, and then I just added on to the end. My second number is
okay.
My second var.
Okay. I think I know what you mean. So in here you put my first variable in this middle bit in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just done it on the second line.
Okay.
I just did the whole first, basically.
And repeated it again.
Repeated it.
Okay, yeah. So you could repeat it and do it again. So the way that we would do it is basically you've got your text here. So text, anything that goes inside these single quotes is always going to be printed, right? And that's what these variable calls. What we actually do is after this print, we can just declare all the variables separated by commas.
Okay.
Sorry, it's a second variable, isn't it? Second var. So you can, and it will always do them in order. So it'll do them. So the first percentage D will look at the first variable. The second percentage D will do the second variable.
So.
And so on. So you've got full stop there.
You can just keep it in the, okay, yeah. You can just go like bar.
Oh, it's worked.
Yeah, it works. Nice. Nice.
Exciting.
Okay, so let's do a second line then now and say, I don't know, multiplying the numbers together gives, and then output the multiplier variable. That makes sense? So I'll write the first bit. So f(f) multiplying my numbers together gives Yeah, and finish that with the multiplier variable showing, so that it prints that as the next line. That work? Have you got it working, or is that, where's that at? It's a shame we can't like all three share our screens together or something. That'd be nice. Is it working back soon?
Yeah, mine says multiply my numbers together gives 6.
Sounds good. Sounds right. Great. Christy's
Spell a mistake.
nice.
Strangely though, it's on the same line as the first one, so like there's no space between them.
Okay, that's interesting. I'll show you how to do a new line. How's yours going, Crystal? No.
No, I'm trying to work out what I've done wrong. But definitely spelling mistakes.
What's the error you're getting?
Invalid expression.
Are you missing a bracket or a comma or a apostrophe?
Comma in the wrong place.
Back in a second.
All right, insert back. Comma.
Yeah. Oh, good now. Oh.
Nice. So yeah, percentage D, comma, multipliers. Nice. Beautiful. Seems like a useless piece of code, but actually this is exactly what I did at the bottom of my, yeah, I'll show you actually that. I'll show you that next when Bexy comes back.
No, this is like really, really helpful.
That's all right. We're going to go on to if statements now. And then for loops. They're so easy. It's crazy how it feels so. It's amazing how like coding is built on like just a few principles, and you can do anything with it. It's really amazing. And using like greater thans and equal thans and all that kind of stuff. It's really cool.
At some point, like this will be maths. I think at some point, like you won't really do maths. You'll do maths with coding.
Yeah. You'll do the two together. Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of maths in this. I don't think we need anything too complicated, to be honest, but there's
divide by 50 probably is like the most.
Literally, there's divide by the sync values thing. I had to do some like I had to work out, because I have a file that has the time that the infant LED shines and the time that the mum LED shines, but it depends. You basically need to shift all of the numbers in all the ones and zeros, but you need to know which one you're going to shift. You're going to shift the mum or the infant. And the way I did that was by working out if the infant number in that file, the LED file, was bigger than the mum's, or the mum's was bigger than the infant's. And then you decide which one you're going to shift.
Did you do that with Matlab, or did you just do that manually?
Yeah, I just did it in Matlab, but now it just does it. It literally works. The only manual thing you got to do is, you got to watch the videos and put in those two numbers, but then it's all done now automatically in Matlab. It just does it when it creates these files. I've got LED. I don't know if you see my screen, but I select LED file. I call it LED, a variable called LED file. And then literally I work out the sync value, and it's just one number minus the other number. And then the absolute. So if it's a negative, it just makes it a positive. And that's it. And I've got my value called sync value. And that's it for those two videos. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. It's fun. It's just, it's cool. Right. Session. Got it. Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah, you got it back. See ya.
Yeah.
You got it working right. Nice. So yeah, you asked the question. Yeah, so mine's done the same. It's put everything on. So it's joined it up. Interesting that I didn't realize that my print does that. But okay, so what we do, and this is actually across any coding language anywhere, is \n gives you a new line.
Yeah, I
So
should
if
know
you put
that from using
Yeah.
Graphies.
From what? Sorry.
Graphies. It's a like a website where you can create like what they called
Diagrams.
mind maps. That's it.
They use, well, there's some like coding stuff you can do in there for, or just some stuff to do. That's
Yeah.
cool. So yeah, it's like universal with \n. So you can do \n. So if you do that at the end, you do that always goes inside. That's still like inside the text.
Mm-hmm.
If you run that now, it'll put it onto a new line. What do you think you do if you want to have a new like 2 spaces, like you want to have a separation between the lines? What do you think you do? So let's say you want, yeah, exactly. No, almost not quite 2 ends. So try it with 2 ends, see what happens if you put 2 ends.
I just put some in there.
Just, yeah. Did you try it with 2 ends, Bexy?
It doesn't seem to make any difference if you put.
What's your third line? What does your third line say in the output in the command window?
Third line.
You got a third line? Oh, maybe you don't have the welcome. Do you have the welcome to my script line?
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah. So yeah, you just put the dash in the end twice, and then it puts an extra.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So you just you do another backslash exactly, and it will just add the space. So you could do on your phone if you've got the welcome to my script line. You could also put. Oh, sorry. Welcome to my. Okay. It doesn't work in the display thing. That's interesting. I didn't know that. So it will literally display. This is why I haven't really seen display used much. I've used it quickly at the top of my when I wanted to like just put in here like tell me what to select when it opens the windows. I put it in because there's no variables or anything. It's just simple text. But yeah, if you want new lines and things, use this print F for that instead. Cool. Great. So that's cool. So we're now pulling out stuff that we've stored. Let's okay, yeah, let's do just a couple of these with some if statements, and then we're going to load in a file. And so we're not, because I think, so here we're obviously like declaring numbers ourselves, but we're not going to be doing in the real world. We're going to be using these files that have this coding, and we're going to be pulling in numbers there. So it means whatever file you pull in, you're always going to put in the numbers instead of doing this generally. Okay, so if statements. This is like, I feel like if statements are like the basis of all coding. So basically, yeah. So an if statement essentially does it says if something is true, then do something. Otherwise, do something else. And you can put lots of if statements. So you can say, okay, so let's just do it. So the syntax for an if statement, it will be if blah 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 blah. Then okay, so if I'm just going to call it condition. So if a condition is met, for example, then do X.
We might be moving.
Else. Do something else.
Yeah. Well, end of March, really. April, yeah.
It does some automatic indenting there. Like I think it back the else automatically when you type else and then press enter. I think it moves else back. So we always use the tab button. So tab to jump forward and indent, and tab to go back and indent. So with the end, it actually typed it here. Then I press shift and tab to take it back to the beginning. So all the any automatic indent is done by the tab come out.
Seems like when you call a state
key. Yeah.
At least they're not very professional. They're very snippy.
Okay, so we're going to put in some stuff here. So why don't we say if
I don't know why.
let's change my second variable to 4. Okay. So if you just change that to 4. Okay, so should we say that if actually sorry, it doesn't matter, does it?
Do you know where what's it called? The dock is? It's like looking over the dock.
All right, let's just do one that says that if if my first variable is true, if my first variable is less than 3, then we're going to print the number 2, give me your variable, is less than 3. Should we do that? Yeah, does that make sense? So let's type here, if my first variable is less than 3, let's start with that. So if
I was quite skeptical too because of
usually just give me that whether the condition is met. So
no, I'm walking around. We got there a little early. I don't know why, but we had time. It's like if we walk around, we get a chicken a sniff, make sure it's still healthy.
so if
How do you make it put the percentage marks in?
so if you highlight it and press Command, oh, you're on a Mac or a Windows, right?
Windows.
Press Control and /.
Yeah, you know, the place is even bigger than my current place, and even nicer.
Doesn't seem to be doing anything.
No?
No.
Yeah, left click. Oh no, like highlight or left click and press comment.
Oh yeah, you can right click and click comment. Actually, it should tell you what the shortcut is for your, I don't know what it is on Windows, maybe it's different. If you highlight it and right click, it should bring up, yeah, all this stuff, and it should be a comment option.
Yeah.
Well, what's the shortcut for Windows?
Control and R.
And what's uncomment? The shortcut?
Control and T.
Okay, cool. So yeah, so you can use R and T to comment and then uncomment. And on Mac, are you on Mac or Windows, Crystal?
Oh, Mac.
Okay, so yeah, it's Command and / on Mac. Command and T removes. Okay, so we've got if my first variable, what did we say, is less than 3?
Yeah.
Okay. How are you guys doing with that line? Are you all right with that first line?
We're
Do less than 3, make it a little nicer, whatever you want to call it, whatever it looks like. It's less than 3. We don't use a semicolon at the end of those lines for some reason, but then what we're going to do is we're going to print something, okay? So we're going to print, and let's just say 2 is less than 3, but let's call 2 the variable. So instead of, so we can change that variable and we'll still do the test. Does that make sense? So
yeah.
Yeah, so you're gonna be calling a variable in the print as right. 2 is less than 3. 3 is going to be hard to type that.
No.
I haven't written the answer yet, but let me know when you've done that.
Well, yeah, or I got distracted that weekend, but I called you up at some point. I got distracted with other things, but I called him like during the week, like it was a Wednesday or something in the middle of the day. Like I just have time. I don't know why he crossed my mind. I thought, how is that boy? I haven't spoken to him in ages.
Yeah. Okay. So what have you got? Lexi, what have you got?
I had a error message.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Spelling issue again.
Nice.
There we go.
Cool. So what have you written? Print F.
Yeah, I need to put in never.
Oh wait, it's not going to run actually because we haven't got anything. The else doesn't make sense. It's not going to run.
Yeah.
So I just type in. You can check. Just check for now that you've got the same. You should have percentage D. So inside the single quotes, you should have percentage D is less than 3, and then a comma, and then my first var, and then bracket.
I've got some more news. I'm going to be quarantining for.
Okay. So and then the else is just says if we don't meet that condition, then do something else. Okay. Otherwise, let's print the number. The number is not less than 3. Yeah.
Yeah. It says 2 is less than 3.
Did it do it without typing anything else? And you needed else. Did you do something in the else statement?
I didn't.
Yeah.
You can actually just comment out whatever you'd written there anyway. You can actually go else end. And if it doesn't, it will just run the if. Oh wait, so we need some new lines because yours doing that back to where it says.
Yeah, I already put the
end. Nice. So you can even put it up there, or you can put it at the start of the other one, wherever you want to put it. How's yours, Crystal, doing?
errors.
That's cool.
Like, too-
Obviously, errors are the way I learn to do so much of this stuff. So they're really useful. What did you get? What error have you got?
But it means I have to quarantine too. What else is new with you? Tell me what else is new with you? What have you been up to? What have you been seeing?
Oh my god, my friend's just sent me an 18-minute voice note. Oh my god.
Nothing much. I mean, he's just happy you're there. He doesn't really talk. I only talked for about 5 minutes because he was in the middle of work. Told you, I called him like. Yeah.
doesn't like.
I mean, like, to be honest, I was thinking about this. There aren't many people I'm in contact with at all. Like, it's you, maybe you're trying every now and again. Hell, to be honest, I stopped talking to you.
The most exciting thing that's happened to me recently is finding my glasses that I'd lost under the bed.
Really? You lost your glasses?
Yeah, that's why I've been like wearing these like really like ugly pair for ages.
Oh wow, where did you find them?
Huh?
Where did you find them?
They were under the bed.
Under the bed.
Like the one place I hadn't looked. And I also found a top that I haven't seen for about a year. So it's a good day.
Yeah, it's a good day. They're cool glasses.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, that must be a pain when you lose your glasses.
Yeah, my other ones aren't so good. They're just like a cheap pair that I got from like a website for like £12 a few years ago.
Like a spare pair. At least you had the spare pair, right? Like it's
Yeah, that's true.
yeah.
How's Crystal getting on?
I did take out that then, so it does.
Oh, yeah, sorry. You can actually just delete that else thing for now if you want all that else stuff. So I've just done
I was
that.
just like, this backing script is right, but I realised
Yeah. But it should have said line, whatever line that is.
I was just trying to work out what the difference was with mine and yours. It took too long for me.
Right. Okay, so that works, right? So have you both got it saying 2 is less than 3?
Yeah.
Okay, let's just put an else. So it's like otherwise, if not, let's put the 2 is not less than 3. So you can copy and paste obviously, or typing again is always a good thing.
Like just something as simple as I've got proper sophisticated. Like we drink red wine at home. It's like, oh, would you want to drink? Yeah, it's like a margarita cocktail, just like this.
Sorry?
If you put then, it changes the bracket.
Sorry, the then was just what I wrote earlier just to explain stuff.
Alright.
Get rid of the then. So all you want is if, else, and end. That's it.
It changes what the it changes when you do that. It comments actually out from where that comment is on the D.
Oh right.
Green.
Really? Well, when you wrote then.
Yeah, so if you put then, if you see?
Oh yeah. What the hell?
Yeah.
I wonder what that's doing. Yeah, that's interesting.
But then it's changed the D function, obviously a comment function then. So yeah.
And it runs as well. That's interesting.
Did it run?
Yeah.
I couldn't with an error, I think, but.
Oh yeah. Unrecognized vote. Yeah. I don't know why it does that. That's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. So have you both done that then? So that So you should still get 2 is less than 3. But if you change the number to 4 or 5 or 50 or whatever you want, 457, it will change everything you get down at the bottom. So the first number changes. You should now say that it's not less than 3. What about if you put the number 3? If you call it my first variable, you call it 3. Oh wait, it's still yeah.
3 is not less than 3.
Which isn't right?
Yeah.
So actually, because that makes sense, right? So we need to cover that condition where 3 is also.
So is that equal to or less than? Or equal to?
Oh yeah. Yeah, but then you've got to change the text. So let's say we want to say whether it's less than.
I don't know how these runners run in cold weather.
Or is 3.
So bad for your muscles.
There's an extra type of thing here. So we've got if and else. There's another one called else if. So it allows you to put like another if statement, and it runs these in order. So it will first check, is my first variable less than 3? And it will say yes and stop if it does. Or sorry, Crystal, go on.
I was just going to ask, does it have to be if, else, or can it be else, if?
No, it needs to be if, because else is the final, like, and if none of the above works, then do this. So if the else if you put another condition in, so it keeps checking them. So let's do else if my first var is greater than 3, then we're going to put in the one we did have before. So not less than, or we can put is greater than 3 or not less than. That doesn't really, yeah, let's put it's greater than 3. Sorry, I made a mistake there. Sorry, else if, and then the condition. And my first var, I can't even spell myself. My first var is greater than 3.
I've just put myself onto mute because Dimitri's on the phone to somebody.
Okay, that's cool. That's all right. Yeah, so then, have you got that? Have you guys got that? So you run that. So you run it with, if you run it now with my first var is 2, it should still say 2 is less than 3. And if you run it with my first var as 4 or something higher than 3, it should now say 4 is greater than 3 or whatever number you've done. Is that right? Is that working? The else if working? Yeah. But what happens as it stands, if we write 3, what do you get? Are you getting anything? And you might do, it depends what you've written. I'm not getting anything personally, because I haven't satisfied condition 1 where it's less than 3. And I haven't satisfied condition 2 where it's greater than 3, and I haven't written anything else for any other instances yet.
Yes, I've just got exactly what you've got on the screen.
You've got what, sorry?
I've got exactly what you've got.
Okay. So I'm going to put f print f. I'm going to put my first var must be 3. There's no other option. Like if it's not greater than or less than 3, then it must be 3, right? Must be 3. I'm just going to put that in. My first var.
And then I was going to say, oh, you can just put if needs an end, but the else can go inside the if and end.
The else, yeah, it goes inside. It's like this. Is that what you mean? Like if you got it the same as me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the if must end with an end. So if an end, and the else ifs and the else all go inside the if and the end.
Because if you have like multiple ifs, then you have to have multiple ends. I know I've done that before where I've seen, like, I've done some code where it's ends.
Exactly, yeah, so you can put other ifs inside ifs.
Oh yeah, I think it was in a for loop, because I did for if, else.
Right. Yeah, we could do that. We'll put one more in. It's like Inception.
Yeah.
But it's good practice for for loops, because for loops, you net like for loops inside for loops and stuff. Like, I think one of mine's got like 4 of them inside each other.
It's good though, because Matlab kind of tells you that you haven't put an end in.
Yeah, it's really good. You're right. Yeah, so if you do delete the end and try and run it, it will tell you at least one end is missing. The statement may begin here. So it's line 20, so it's guessing that it's begun. The statement begins here with the if, and it's basically telling me the end is missing for the if. Yeah, it's really, really useful.
Whoever created Matlab, like, hats off to them.
Yeah, it's really helpful, to be fair. I've had that come up a lot with the longer scripts where I've had 4 things and it said I'm missing an end, and then I have to go and work out where the hell to put it. Yeah.
Oh my God, when I was doing Blue Prism, like, you never told you where your error was. You just had to go through, and like it was like visual, and it was like pages. You start on the one page and you then
right.
So you go through it.
Yeah.
And if you couldn't find it, I'm like, I'm 25 pages of
yeah.
I have no idea where the problem is.
I might show you actually something. Have you got this done? So it should say 3 must be 3. If it's 3, you can change it. If it's 2, it will give you satisfy the first condition. So as soon as it satisfies a condition, it basically jumps to the end. It ends.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother. Yeah, that's done. Cool. Yeah, let's actually, this is quite a useful thing to learn. It's just a really quick, simple thing. Let's make an error on this third print line to multiply my numbers together gives. Let's just make an error. Just delete the first apostrophe, for example, which should give me an error. Yeah. So it's giving me an error. You got that? Yeah. And I said just delete something, mess it up, and got an error. Yeah, Bexy.
Haven't deleted anything.
Okay, just delete like an apostrophe or something in there.
Yeah.
The error. Then it does give me the line where the error occurs, and it probably is obvious here what it is. In some of the longer scripts, it's less obvious what is going wrong, particularly with loops and things. So actually, something really useful to learn is, do you see the little dashes along next to all the numbers on the left?
Yeah.
If you click on those, oh, God, syntax. Sorry, you can't do it when there's a syntax. Can I do another type of error? I don't know if I can do another error.
I wonder if we can maybe call like line 8. I wonder if you can write one of the variables wrong and see if that works. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it might work. Yeah, let me do it on this final one down here. Yeah, great, nice, thanks. Yeah, so that line, sorry, yeah, so to fix the syntax, so to have the apostrophe, but make the variable name wrong or something in that last print line.
Yeah.
So I'm calling multvar, I've called it multvar instead of multvars. So it does tell me that unrecognized variable multvar, which is, and tells me the line number, so it's pretty useful. But let's say it was more complex and I couldn't work it out. Something that I actually did the other day and with the for loops, really useful. If you click these lines next, so I'm going to click on the first two. Oh, I'll click on all of them and click on all of the dots, apart from well, let's do all of them. Yeah, all of them. I'll just click on all of those first like 6 lines where there's dashes. And then when you press run, can you see that it's put a little green arrow next to your first line of code? So what those circles are that you've done is you've created what's called breakpoints. So basically it will run through the code and it will pause at everywhere you've written a breakpoint. And this allows you to see where you have an error in your code, which is super useful, especially when you're running loops and you're going round and round and round. So if you, and then, yeah, wait, sorry, then back to writing down. Yeah, this is really, and what it does is, so you can actually step through your code, and it will even, like, as you're going, it will declare the variables on the right one by one. Anything you're doing at the bottom of the command window will appear one by one. So it will only do whatever point it's got to in the code, which is super useful for, yeah, bug checking as well. So at the top now, instead of having a run button or a pause or whatever, you've got a continue button. And on the far right, you've got a quit debugging button, because this is just, we've essentially gone into like debugging mode by doing this. So we can quit debugging, which will just basically stop the code, or we can go continue. So if you continue to the next one, it will just jump, the green arrow jumps down. And now in our workspace on the right, you should have it declare. It's actually always one below. The arrow seems to be one below the line that it's run. So it's broken. It breaks just before it runs the line. So because, can you see it's got the arrow by my second var?
But it's just on the first one. So
my first var, which, so it's declared that and it's stored that on the right. So if I do it again, continue again, it will run my line 7, my second var, but it hasn't run multivars. So we can basically continue through. And then as soon as so 12 is, I'm actually going to add one down here, the if statement. So if I now continue past my one with the error, I'll get the error. I mean, we knew that and we could have solved it from the error message before, but it's just a good thing to learn about these breakpoints. You can right click on any breakpoint or any breakpoint and just click clear all breakpoints, and it will just get rid of all of them. Or you can click on a single one to basically turn them on and off by single clicking on them. Yeah, it's a really useful thing for that later on. It's useful. How are you guys doing all right at the moment? Is it all right?
all good for me.
All making sense? Nice. Okay. Let's do something. Okay, let's get rid. We're going to get rid of these. Let's put the. Should we put the if inside the if, just because we were going to. Okay, yeah. Let's put the if inside the if. So let's say. So what we want to do is say that if the variable is less than 3, then print the number is less than 3. But then if that's succeeded, we also want to check if it's greater than 0 as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can like basically put an if inside. So once we've satisfied this first condition, we can now in here make another if statement. And when that ends, it will continue the previous one. Okay, so I'm just going to put some space. Normally you would put it all together. I'm putting some spaces just so you can see it a bit clearer. So we know that it's less than 3. But now let's say if my first variable is greater than 0, then fprintf, we're going to say the number 2 is also, sorry, is also greater than 0. My first var. I'm just going to put an else. My first var, else. So if it's not, I'm just going to say, I'm actually going to put fprintf, yeah, and I'm going to say, but the number is not greater than 0. My first var. And then end. So actually, if the number's greater than 3, it's just going to ignore that whole all that anyway. So it's just going to do a second test to see if it's also greater than 0. That makes sense?
Yeah.
So if the number is 4, it should hit this else if greater than 3 and just do this number, right? So we do 4. Oh wait, I fixed my thing from before. If we do number 4, yeah, we should get 4 is greater than 3. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is yours working, Crystal?
Yeah, I just got an error message.
Yeah, no.
What am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing how like suddenly you see how much code you write. So like those other scripts I've got that are quite long, actually there's not much going on in them. They get really long really quickly. This is already at 25 lines and I've done nothing. Just like, so they do fill up quite quickly.
I don't know what's happened with mine, but it says, actually, I know what it is. I haven't separated them with a line. So it says 2 is less than 3.2 is also greater than 0.
Oh, right. Yeah. Oh, I see. So it looks
Yeah.
like 2. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so you might when you \ends.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. It's a bit confusing. I'm just going to add something as well. Nice. It's working, Crystal? Is that still erroring?
No, it's working. I think
Nice.
you need
Okay.
sleep to do these stuff sometimes, don't you? Because you can get
Sorry?
it. You need to just make sure that you don't fuck up on any writing at all.
Yeah. So yeah, so 4. It should say 4 is greater than 3. Yeah. And then it should be 3. Should be 3. Must be 3. It's the final. It wasn't greater than. It wasn't less than. Therefore, it must be 3. If we put 2 or 1, we should have 2 is less than 3, and then it checks is it greater than 0, and it was. So it should say 2 is also greater than 0. You both got that?
Yeah.
Okay, and it should do the same for 1. But then if you put a 0 or a negative number, it should say but whatever that number is not greater than 0. I haven't put less than because we didn't put an option for 0.
Yeah.
But we put negative 12, minus 12, and it's
But 0 is not greater than 0.
Which is true, right? We just didn't put in the third one to allow for, Cool. Nice, so that's all working. Great, so we can check values, we can check things being greater than or less than, we can do condition, and then do certain things if certain things meet certain criteria, which is great. Okay. thing to do next. Let me know if you get tired at any point and you want to stop for today. But I want to bring it into something that's linked to
The matrix.
Yeah, so so let's I'll tell you what, instead of having these numbers, let's hang on, let me just see how to okay, let's can we just copy out, do you mind just copying and commenting out all of that code just so it doesn't do anything, just so that we can do some more stuff below it. So if you want to put a title in or something, you could always put at the top, you could always write you know, if statements or something if you want something at the top. Or we could call it declaring variables and if statements or something. And then just because you've got it for later, if you ever want to look back at it or look back at the, you know. It's variables, printing texts with variables, I don't know. And if statements. Yeah, it's quite a lot of stuff already. That's great. Nice. Okay, let's do, okay. I just need to test something first myself, one sec. 1 second.
Yeah, I might have to go in about 20 minutes for food.
All right, we can get this thing pulling in.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I'm sure Dimitri will be very impressed with you.
Oh yeah. So I just want to check how do I do this. I don't normally do it this way. How do I do it? Cool. Okay. 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 So we're going to do. It's kind of what Demetrius did the other day. We're going to do it and we'll load in our file. So, so yeah, we're going to look at a matrix, which is essentially just another word for it's just another word for a table. Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a matrix called matrix 1. So again, it's a variable. This is a variable name. So we're just declaring the name of our matrix. And the way you store values in matrices is you do them by row. I actually haven't had to do it this way, but basically you store values with square brackets inside a matrix. So if we want row 1, let's say to have the numbers 1, 2, 3, we just put 1 space 2 space 3.
Can you just move your mouse a second?
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Just for later. No.
Yeah, and so we could just do that. We could just do it like that if we wanted. And that's going to create a single row with 3 cells, 3 columns, 1, 2, 3. So I press play. It will declare it because we haven't put the semicolon. If we do it with the semicolon, it will not display at the bottom, but it will still add to the workspace. If you double click on it in the workspace, matrix 1, it brings it up in your left, in the, you know, up here. Do you get that? If you double click in, yeah?
Yeah.
Great. So you can see 1, 2, and 3. Okay, let's add a second row, 4, 5, 6. So the way you jump to a next row is you add a semicolon, and then you go 4. Let's do 4, 5, 6. I think you could put gaps or whatever you want. It's fine. And it should add a 4, 5, 6. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Okay, now we're going to call a specific number from here. So we always call, so everything is always row, then column, always. So if we want to call that matrix, let's say we want to call that number 1, we would look at matrix, and then inside brackets we would put 1, 1, and it would look for row 1, column 1.
Just need to put matrix 1.
Sorry, thanks.
Nice.
No, that's good. Yeah, matrix 1, 1, 1. If I put a semicolon, nothing's going to happen because I'm not create. Oh, it'll give me the answer. It does actually do something, it gives me an answer. But I'm going to get rid of the semicolon just so it can put it at the bottom, and it should tell me that the answer is 1. Yeah. So what do you want to do if you want to grab that? Let's say you want to get the answer to be number 5. What would you put in your brackets?
2, 2.
2, 2. Yeah, exactly. So second row, second column, and you get a 5. What about if you want the number 6?
2, 3.
2, 3. Yeah, second row, third column. Exactly. Let's say we want all of the columns, but just the first row. You can use the semicolon.
So that means all.
Yeah. Well, actually, you know what? Sorry. Before we do that, let's do one. It can do ranges. So let's do 1 to 3. So let's say row 1, columns 1 to 3. Sorry, let's do it as a range first with the numbers. If you run that, you should get all 3 columns returned. You could change the 1 to a 2, and now you should only get columns 1 and 2. First row. That makes sense?
Yeah.
You change the row number to number 2, and we can get that as well. Okay. What would we do if we want to store whatever this value is, if we want to store it as a new variable to use separately later on?
Do equals and then a name for it?
Yeah. We do it the other way around normally, yeah. Exactly. So we would say, let's call it, I don't know, new matrix, or matrix, yeah, new matrix equals. And when you run that, you should now have a new thing there called new matrix, and you can now call that and do stuff with that separately. Yeah, going back to that all. Yes, if you remove the numbers on the one in the range, it basically just does everything in that row, in the rows or the columns. So if you do row 2 and then the colon, you should get 4, 5, 6 because it does the whole of row 2. And you want all the rows, but just column 3. You do colon and for the rows, and then the number 3 for the columns. And that even shows it to you as a column in the bottom, which is quite nice.
How do you feel?
Does that make sense?
No, but
yeah.
It depends. Like if you were to go to the south of France, you could get a house pretty soon. It's just the UK where getting a house is a pain. But how is work anyway? How are you feeling with work?
No. You're getting an error.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Yeah?
Mine's working okay.
Sorry?
Mine's working.
Great. Nice. So yeah, you can also open up this new matrix that's now in your workspace. If you want to check it, you should also have 3. And that will change. Once you've got that open, actually, every time you change this thing at the bottom, you change your code. Let's say, you just want row 1. It will update that variable. So even in that variable view, you'll see the new table you've created, new matrix, that will change. Yeah. And is it showing a little like squiggly red line and a highlighting on your equals sign?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just hover your mouse over that, and you'll see.
Weird. So I know Joe's like his tattoo shop's doing well. He has shops.
Oh, so it wants to put semicolons in, so we.
Yeah, you don't actually need to, but it's telling you, yeah, if you want to suppress the output, so not show it in the command window, then put a semicolon. Just reminding you about that. But it doesn't. It's just, yeah. If you want it down there, then that's fine. Okay, cool. So let's what we're going to do. Okay. Let's do. All right, let's oh, wrong one. Session. Okay. Have you got a coding thing on your computer, like a code somewhere?
Yeah.
Do you mean the Excel file?
Yeah, an Excel file, yeah.
I have.
If you can navigate to it in your, how do you even do that in Matlab? You can kind of do it at the top here in Matlab. You can kind of navigate around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because if you can get your current folder to be the folder that's got an Excel file that you can use, that'd be great. Yeah. Have we all got one that we can all? I guess you've got different ones, right, with different codes. That's fine. Have you got a coding one, Crystal, as well?
Yeah.
Cool. All right, let's do it anyway. So what we're going to do is we're going to load in one of these files. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When we load it in, we need to yeah, we're going to give it a name as well. Okay. So we're going to load in a file. Let's call it file. That's what we're going to call the variable name. I'm just going to equals.
Hold on a second. Hey Google, set a timer for 25 minutes. Got some food.
And we're going to put load. And then inside here, you're going to put the name of the Excel file inside apostrophes. So I'm going to take, for example, I don't know, 26_1_nap2c_inf to Excel xx. I'm definitely going to put a semicolon. I'll show you what happens if you don't put a semicolon.
Will it explain everything in that Excel?
Yeah, you do it. It's quite fun. Oh wait, it's not going to do it. Hang on.
It's doing it for me.
Sorry. Do it. Have you got any of them as CSV? You should have CSV files. Sorry.
Yeah, mine's a CSV.
Sorry, I meant. Yeah, you have to use a different command. Sorry. Yeah, they output CSVs anyway, don't they? So yeah, if you don't. Oh, what the hell? Have I put something wrong? 26:1. Oh, mine's called something else. Mine's called that. All right. Yeah, if you don't put this semicolon, it'll just show you everything in the bottom, which is fine. Just to check that it's actually loaded in. But you could also double click on the file. You've now got a variable called file that you can click on, double click on the right, and you'll be able to see your file, which is great. I'm going to put a semicolon. Okay. What have you got? So, Crystal, have you also loaded in a coding thing with like how many columns have you got?
3.
Okay, so you got what? Start frame and end frame and a coding number.
Yeah.
What are your numbers? What coding numbers do you have? Is it 1 for puppet and 4 for partner?
Yeah, 1 puppet, 4 partner, 5
intensive, 6 on code. You don't have 2 or 3, right?
No.
Cool.
Sounds easier to code.
However, I press 2 a lot, and if I press 2 on mine, it fucking quits every time. I'm like, oh.
I know.
What's going on there? Because I could have just changed the code, right? I realized afterwards I could have just changed it to 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
Should have just done that, but it's a bit late.
The 4s are consistent across all the projects.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can't cross.
And stuff. Yeah.
All right, cool. So we've got similar things. So let's say we want to. How would you pull in the coding value for your first line? So think in terms of rows and columns and your variable name. We don't need to call this anything new. So just look at my computer a sec. So we had this here. Originally, we had matrix 1, 3, for example, and that was calling the first row, third column, for example, of matrix 3. But then we did something. We made it a variable. We don't need to make it a variable here. Let's just call. Sorry, put a semicolon there. Let's just call from the data we pulled in. let's call that first coding value. So think in terms of rows and columns where that first value is. So think what the variable's called and then what row and column you're going to call. Does that make sense?
I don't think we've named the variable yet, have we?
Yeah. So what did you? We've named it file.
File. Okay.
So all of these in your workspace, all of these names that go under name, anything going in there is your variable name.
Okay.
You can always check back what you called something or something like that.
So sorry, so we're wanting to do something?
Yeah, just to display in your command window the first coding value from the file that you've inputted, that you brought in.
Or print print.
No. We're just gonna show the variable. So we don't need to write any text. We're just gonna. So the same way that we had, if you look, the same way we had matrix 1,
File
like this. We just called it with this bracket. So we put the variable name, and then we just put the bracket, and then the first number is the row, and the second one is the column. That just does it. That just shows us what the value is.
Yeah, I put equals as a mistake between file and the bracket, so then it didn't work, but now it's working.
Nice, great. That's good. You could, if you wanted to call that something, Bexy, you could call it like first code equals and then put the thing, for example, and then you'll create a new variable that's first code or first code value or something, whatever you want to call it. And it declares a new variable.
Cool.
And then whichever file you change it to, that first value, you could change a file, and it will, when you run it, it will change that first coding value to whatever's in that new file. If you change the file name to another one.
Okay. That's cool.
How's it, Kristen? You get it? Yeah, so it should be file 1, 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you run it without the semicolon, we'll get our answer, which is, well, for my one, it's 3. I don't know what you guys have got, something different maybe. Kristen went over 3.
Mine says 385. I don't know what's happening.
385?
Yeah.
Okay. What does yours say, Kristen?
1.
Okay, nice. I was looking at the puppet. You've got 1, 3 as your thing.
I don't know whether that would it make a difference if the CSV file has been filtered or something.
I
If
don't
it's
know.
been filtered in Excel, maybe that's why.
What is it showing when you double click on your workspace here on file? Because that's actually what MATLAB's using. What is it showing as the third column? What's it showing in your columns?
Let's find that file. So, that's weird. Yeah, mine says 385.
Or it says 385.
What's the first column?
Yeah, in the first one. So where you've got 1, mine says 385.
That's
Okay.
We're pulling the row 1, column 3.
Yeah, so if we want to pull the first coding value, then we need column 3, right?
Okay, that's why.
Fine. So the file's okay, right? It's just, did you put 1, 1?
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
That's what's happening.
I was like, you've coded 3, it's got 353. Like,
Yeah.
It's because numlock keeps turning off on my computer, like on my keyboard. There we go. I've got 5.
Nice.
That's it.
We could create a variable for that. We could say my first coding value equals file 1, 3, and then it will store a new thing called my first coding value, and it's a number, whatever that first one is.
I'm also trying to work out why my first second of the video is on 1.
Sorry?
Just trying to work out why the first, I guess yours is as well, and in the first. Have you edited yours though?
No, this is this is mine. Yeah, they must have just been looking at toy number 3 right from when the filming started.
My mind's on 1 from.
Yeah.
I thought we weren't meant to start coding until the thing had been so like
Yeah.
script
Oh,
that
right,
would
yeah.
have been coded from the first frame.
Yeah,
Unless it was a really fast
this might
video.
be the first. Yeah, this might be the first
Yeah.
one I did. Yeah, I normally do.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe I worked out actually after a while that.
Yeah. Okay, so we can store a value from here. What about if we want to store the first 2 rows, those coding values? So currently we're just storing the first row. Do you remember what we did when we wanted to store a range of rows or columns? So we
You
wanted
put a
to define the range.
semicolon in between.
Yeah, it's not
Actually,
it's a normal colon, full colon, not a normal colon.
Okay.
So yeah, let's say the first 2 rows, it'd be 1 to 2, rows 1 to 2, and column 3.
Mhm.
And what's great is because MATLAB stores any number, even a single number, in like those table type style things, it will automatically store this as well as a table. So you'll immediately get those first 2 values. That makes sense?
Yeah.
So we're calling rows 1 to 2 for column 3 from our file, and we're storing them as have you put your variable name equals, yeah, so I'm storing them as my first coding value, like the values, whatever we want to call it. What about if you want to take the whole coding column? So think in terms of how many rows you want.
You just put a normal colon, nothing else.
Yeah, exactly. So that colon just means all of them. So all the rows, and we want column 3. And actually, yeah, so you can call it, I'm just going to call the variable, because it deletes our variables because we're clearing at the start of our script. So you can just change it. So I'm going to call it all coding values.
Mhm.
Then you press run. If you had another one open on your left, and it will just say it doesn't exist anymore because we deleted that variable. So you should now have all coding variables should be however many rows. It should be it's the whole lot. So you've just pulled out all those coding values. Yeah, so in your workspace as well on the right, does it say all coding values? Does it say like a number times 1 double?
Yeah.
Cool. So that's basically, yeah, it's telling you how many rows by how many columns, and that they're double values and they're numbers, basically. The numbers. It does that when it gets too big to display it. It kind of summarizes it like that. But then when you open it, you'll see that it's a full list of numbers. So okay, let's finish. Well, I don't know when you guys need to go, but what we can do is we're going to add up stuff, and we're going to do an if statement, and we're going to say how many of a certain code, how many times we've coded a certain number. Okay, so it doesn't mean the number of times they've looked at a puppet or the time, because we've still got these numbers as our own time windows of frames. We haven't made this matrix where it's everything. But let's do this. Let's think about how we would no, we can do that. Hang on. It's a bit more weird. No, okay, let's do I really want to just show you guys a for loop because I think they're really interesting. Do you need to go?
I'm okay for now.
Okay. Okay. Okay, let's just comment this out a sec. We'll come back to it in a minute. I just want to show you. I'm going to do a for loop. Yeah. So what a for loop does is it literally loops through a range of things one by one, like the basic premise of it. And it's like an if statement. It starts with the word for, and it ends with the word end. And what we do is we have a for and we have an end. And we basically define our loop at the start. And then we have different actions. We could do loads of things. Action 1, action 2. We could put in an if statement. We could do whatever we want inside this loop. And you can just go on and do lots of stuff and then end. So we're not going to just ignore our file for a second. Let's say, can I just want to check something one sec?
Yeah, I see.
Right, let's do, but now we know how to do, ranges now, right? So we've done it with the colon. So what we're going to do is we're going to say we're going to say the numbers 1 to 10. So we'll create a range from 1 to 10. So I should have said define range maybe or something. It could be the loop or the range. So for the numbers 1 to 10, actually let's actually give that a name. So let's say for I equals 1 to 10, display I. Or just stick like call I, but I'm going to leave no semicolon, so it shows at the bottom. And what it's going to do, it's going to loop through where I starts at 1. It will be 1, and then it will show it, and then it will end. And then it will come back, and then it will go to the next value of 2, and then it will show it, and then it will end. Then I will become 3, and it will show it, and it will end, and so on until it hits this, the 10. So if you run it, it should go I equals 1, I equals 2. You should literally see all of the values down there. If you put a semicolon after the I, what happens?
It would just show 10, surely, won't it? Shows nothing.
Yeah, but you're right that in the final, so what it's doing, it's update every loop, it's updating the number assigned to that variable. So the variable I, right by the end time of the loop, yeah, I is now 10 at the end. It's looped through all the other numbers and I is 10. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. What about we want to show all the values in your? Well, let's pull this back. Oh wait, come on. What's only doing I plus? Hang on one sec. Let me think. I just want to check something. This will just go on forever. Hang on. No, it's not going to work, is it? Okay. All right. There's something I was going to show with +1. I've forgotten what it was. Okay. Let's do. What I was going to do. For I is just a variable. Like we often use just like single letters for some of these things. I seems to often be used for for loops. I don't know why, K and R and stuff. So for I, so I'm going to pull back our file thing that we had before. Not the first matrix, just the loaded file. So we've got two things, right? We've got our file with all 3 columns. And we've also got all code, whatever you've called the other variable, I've called it all coding values. For me, it's just got, and it's all the code, just the coding values, right?
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're going to loop through. We're going to say for every row in that coding one, tell us what the value is. Okay. I'm trying to think how to do that. For I equals, well, there's maybe I shouldn't jump to this. Maybe this gets too confusing. No, okay, so it's the same thing. So I mean, the I is irrelevant at the moment, but all coding values with the range that we want to examine now is we want to examine all the rows. So the colon in column 1. And we're just going to happen to each time call that I. So we're going to say I equals, and we're going to show the letter I. I just want to check this actually might not work. I think we might do something else. Oh no, it has done it. Okay, fine. Okay, yeah. Did that work?
Yeah.
It's gone through more. I think. Okay, great. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to, for each row as we go through, we're going to add another column next to it. So we're going to put something in the second column. So when it goes through the first row.
Well, yeah, but do you see my point? Like, if you were an area manager, somebody else should be dealing with that. You just deal with.
Just want to check that we need to do something. Okay, yeah, that works great. Okay. Okay, yeah. So we're gonna say. So this is what you guys have got at the moment, right? You've got I equals all coding values, and then we're declaring it with I. Okay. So we're gonna add a line in. So what we're gonna do is we're going to make the second column of each one. So what is I? So when we see I, when it loops through and it tells us the number I, what is that I each time?
All the coding values in that column.
Yeah, so it's actually each one individually. It's just because it's looping through it so fast, it gives you the whole lot. But it's actually it's doing every time it runs. It's running through that for loop. How many times? 72 times. There's 72 rows. So it's right. Yeah, but you're right. Yeah, so it's giving us all those values. So I is through each loop. I is going to be the value that we're dealing with, the coding value that we're dealing with. So let's put in, like, in the column next to it, we're going to put in I like the we're going to times the coding value by 2. Okay, so the coding value is I at the moment. In the time of the for loop, it's the letter I. So we're going to reference first. We're going to set the second column. So we're going to do all coding values. And then we're going to use the colon 2 for the second column. So whichever one we're on. There is another way to do this, but I think this makes it's a bit of a weird way to do it. Yeah, we're going to basically do I times 2 in there. So you just use the asterisk for the multiplier. We can hide that from the output. I'm going to hide both of them, and we'll just see it in the matrix. But if you run that, you should get your new table should include the multiplications next to it now.
Yeah.
Nice. Did that work, Bexy?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Great. Okay.
I really got to go for dinner, so can we?
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, let's stop for today, and we'll carry on another. Yeah.
Can we? I can't do. I didn't realize. I think we might have a masters thing tomorrow.
I didn't realize we've got that tomorrow. If we.
I haven't prepared anything for it because I think we did discuss looking at a paper beforehand.
I'm at work. Am I at work tomorrow? Yeah.
What time is it?
So
I think it's at 12. It's kind of an awkward time. So it's like slap bang in the middle of the day.
I think Kathy said that she can't come because she's had her baby.
Oh yeah.